Live picture of the U.S. Capitol today, where President Obama has ordered the flags to be flown at half-staff, that in tribute to the victims of the Paris terror attacks. Earlier today, French President François Hollande held a joint meeting of the French Parliament at the palace. He requested a 3-month state of emergency in his country.
Is the Palais de Versailles, where the French President François Hollande is due to address the upper and lower houses of Parliament in an extraordinary session of Congress. He's just arriving now. There he is, the French President, walking past the guards there at the Versailles Palace, just outside the French capital. This is an extraordinary session of Congress. It's highly symbolic. As Clovis has been saying, it's only the second time it's ever happened. There he is, François Hollande, due to address the whole political class, if you will, the upper and lower houses. And just looking at the pictures there as they panned across the audience, who's there? It is everybody from the world of French politics that's there today. And as Clovis was saying, security extremely tight. This, of course, coming in light of the Paris attacks on Friday night, in which 129 people lost their lives, the worst attacks on French soil since the Second World War. Let's listen. The French president is about to speak.
Monsieur le Président de la République, avant de vous donner la parole, j'invite le Congrès à observer 1 minute de silence. Je vous remercie. Monsieur le Président de la République, vous avez la parole. Monsieur le Président du Congrès.
Mr. Speaker of the Congress, Mr. President of the Senate, Prime Minister,
Mesdames, Messieurs les membres du gouvernement,
members of the government,
Mesdames, Messieurs les parlementaires.
parliamentarians,
La France est en guerre.
France is at war.
Les actes commis vendredi
The
soir à
acts
Paris
committed
et près
on
du Stade de
Friday
France
evening in
sont
Paris
des actes de guerre.
near the Stade de France were acts of
Ils ont
war.
fait au moins 129 morts.
At least 129 people were killed and many people were injured. It represents an attack, an aggression against our country,
Contre ses valeurs,
against its
contre
values,
sa jeunesse,
against its youth,
contre son mode de vie.
and against its way of life.
Ils sont le fait d'une armée djihadiste, le groupe Daesh,
These acts were created by an army of jihadists, the Daesh group,
parce que la France est un pays
who
de
are
liberté,
fighting France because it is a country of freedom, because we are the country of the rights of man, of human rights. In this very serious period,
à m'adresser
I
devant le
took the
Parlement
decision to speak
réuni
to
au Congrès.
Parliament in Congress, both houses of Parliament in Congress, to mark our national unity in the face of this abominable act and to respond
La détermination
with
froide
cold determination
à l'attaque
to
ignoble
the ignoble act, the horrible act which targeted our country last
Notre
Friday.
démocratie
Our democracy
a triomphé d'adversaires bien
has
plus redoutables
overcome
en vérité.
even
C'est là
worse adversaries than these cowardly assassins. Our republic
pas à la portée de mes
is
misérables peurs.
cannot be
Ma volonté
brought down by such people. My determination is to put the power of the state at the service of the protection of our fellow citizens. And I know we can count on the service, the loyalty of the law enforcement organizations, and you know the need to show the sense of sacrifice when necessary. The terrorists believe
Les peuples libres
that free people
se laisseraient
can
impressionner par l'horreur.
be intimidated by the horror of their acts. It is not the case. The French Republic has overcome many other ordeals, and it is still there, alive,
Et ceux qui ont entendu la
and
défiance
those
ont toujours
who
été
intend to defy the Republic
perdants de l'histoire.
have always lost out. in historical terms, and it will be the same this time. The French people are ardent, valiant people, courageous people. They do not give up. They do not resign themselves. They stand up and resist whenever a child of the country has been attacked. By deliberately attacking innocents, they have shown how cowardly they are, shooting at people who were unarmed. So we're not committed in a war between civilizations. These assassins don't represent a civilization. We're at war against jihadist terrorism, which threatens the whole of the world, and not only France. In this war, which began several years ago, we are fully aware of the fact that it will take time and it will require patience, and because of the tough challenge ahead of us. The enemy uses the most vile methods to kill, but they cannot get away with it. And I will be even more specific. They are not out of our reach. So in this very difficult period, in these very difficult times for our fellow citizens who have felt the horror, they must stay calm. They must keep calm. And once again, I call on all our fellow countrymen, all our compatriots, to show the virtues that we are proud of: perseverance, unity, lucidity, and dignity. Today, our country is mourning. We are thinking of those innocent people who died in the streets of Paris and in the suburbs. We're thinking of their families who are suffering the most unconsolable pain, and we're thinking of the hundreds of young people and young boys and girls, young men and women who were injured and traumatized by this terrible attack. Some of them at this very moment are still fighting for survival. They're still fighting for their lives. I would like to pay tribute to the emergency services who have mobilized all their resources since Friday. Our health system was up to this challenge, and once again our health system showed that it can fulfill its missions. I would also like to pay tribute to the law enforcement organizations who are fully committed to ensuring the security of French citizens. Once again, they have shown courage. These police officers who, when they had to attack the Bataclan theater to free the hostages, they faced the hostages would have died if the police had not intervened. They showed once again their determination and that they were capable of surpassing themselves. France, the whole of France, was the target of terrorists. France loves life, sport, culture. France, in all its diversity, in religious diversity, the France that the assassins wanted to kill were the young people of France in all their diversity. And most of those who died were under 30. Mathias, Cantia, Nick, Jamela, Valentin, and the others. What was the crime that they had committed? Their crime was being alive, simply being alive. And the terrorists were aiming at a France that is open to the world. Several dozen foreign friends of 19 different nationalities were among the victims. Since Friday evening, I have received messages of solidarity from heads of state and government from all over the world. And in many parts of the world, the tricolor, the three colors of the French flag, are displayed, which reminds us that France remains a beacon for humanity. And when France is attacked, it is the world which feels attacked. Acts of war, the acts of war committed on Friday, were decided on and planned in Syria. They were organized in Belgium and perpetrated on our territory with French accomplices. These attacks had one specific objective: to make people, to instill fear in people, and to divide us, and to put pressure on us to prevent us in the Middle East from fighting against terrorism. We are facing an organization, Daesh, which has a territorial base, it has financial resources and military capabilities. Since the beginning of the year, this organization has notably already attacked Paris, Denmark, Tunisia, Egypt, the Lebanon, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Libya. And every day they are massacring people and oppressing the populations. That is the reason why the need to destroy Daesh is a challenge for the whole of the international community. So I have asked the Security Council of the United Nations to convene as early as possible to adopt a resolution which will express our joint resolution to fight against terrorism. In the meantime, France will intensify its military operations in Syria. Yesterday evening, I ordered 10 French fighter bombers to bomb the headquarters of Daesh in Raqqa. They destroyed a command post and a training camp, and I would like to congratulate the French pilots who succeeded, whose mission was a success. I would also like to thank our American allies who supported us in this operation, and I would like to make it known we will continue these airstrikes in the weeks to come. The aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle will be leaving France on Thursday and will go to the Middle East, and this will triple our resources, our capabilities. And there will be no respite. We will not stop our efforts. Those who ordered the attacks in Paris must know that their crimes, instead of reducing our resolution, has reinforced our determination to destroy them. Terrorism, we fight against it everywhere where states are threatened, where their very survival is under threat. And this justifies my decision to intervene in Mali. And today our military are also present in the Sahel desert, where Boko Haram is massacring, kidnapping and raping people. Terrorism, we are fighting against terrorism in Iraq to enable the authorities in Iraq to restore their sovereignty over the whole of the country. And in Syria, we are seeking resolutely a political solution in which Bashar al-Assad cannot be a part, of which he cannot be a part. But our enemy in Syria is Daesh. So we are not simply aiming to contain Daesh. We need to destroy this organization, both to save the people, the people of Syria, Iraq. I could add the people of Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and all the neighboring countries. And it's also to protect us in order to prevent more attacks in our country, to prevent foreign fighters to come and commit terrorist acts in our country. We need to do more. Syria has become the biggest manufacturing center of terrorists in the world, as it were, and the international community, and I have often observed this, the international community is divided and has an incoherent policy. France asked from the very beginning that the international community should act in a more unified way. Today, we need more airstrikes. We need more support for those who are fighting against Daesh. We will France will bring more support to those who are fighting Daesh. But we must bring together all those who can really fight against this terrorist army within the framework of a large single coalition. We will be working in that direction. It's in this spirit that I'll be meeting President Obama and President Putin in the next few days to join forces with them and achieve a result which for the moment is still in the distant future. France speaks to everybody. We speak with the Lebanese, the Gulf states, Turkey. The Paris attacks took place at the very moment when we were when a meeting was being held in Vienna to find a political solution to the situation in Syria. Today, everybody has to face his responsibilities, the neighboring countries, the big powers, but also Europe. I have asked the Minister of Defense for tomorrow to invoke an article of the European Union which lays down that when a state is attacked, a European state is attacked, all the member states must show solidarity with the country attacked. The enemy is not an enemy of France. It is an enemy of Europe. And Europe cannot continue living with the idea that the crises around it have no impact on it. And the question of the refugees is directly linked with the war in Syria and in Iraq. The inhabitants of those countries, notably those who come from the areas under the control of Daesh, have experienced martyrdom and are fleeing. They are the victims of the same terrorist system. And that's why it is of vital importance that we should welcome those who have a right to asylum and send back to their home countries those who have no right to asylum. We must provide effective protection of our external borders. We're working on this. We were the first to warn Europe about this. France, with Germany, is making sure that countries that are facing major flows of migrants will be supported. And they are the countries in the region itself, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan. And if Europe does not keep control over its external borders, and we've already seen this today in front of our very eyes, there will be a return to national borders and to barbed wire and fences on our borders, which amounts to the deconstruction of the European Union. It is also essential that the requests that France has expressed for a long time find their translation quickly in Europe. The fighting against trafficking of arms, the implementation of coordinated and systematic controls at the borders, and the implementation of what we call the European PNR by the end of this year to ensure the traceability of the jihadists and those who have been arrested. These are the requirements, the demands that France will be expressing again via the Minister for Interior Affairs at the meeting that will be taking place on our request on Friday. Faced with the acts of war which have taken place on our territory and which happened following the attacks of the 7th and 8th of January this year, and so many other crimes committed during the past years in the name of this same jihadist doctrine, we must be merciless. We know this, and it is cruel to say that it is French citizens who Friday have killed other French citizens. On our territory, there are individuals who, from ordinary crime, have moved on to radicalization and terrorism. Sometimes they have fought in Syria or Iraq. Sometimes they set up networks which train, depending on circumstances, or help each other
to carry out at a moment chosen by the person who gives them instructions to commit terror acts. And we've seen that during the past months, and we have seen, unfortunately, what this preparation leads to. And so we must react in an emergent situation and also over a long period. During the night of Friday,
les fusillades ont fait connaître leur terrible bilan.
When we counted the dead after the shootings, I convened the Council of Ministers and I ordered the reestablishment of controls at the borders, and I declared the state of emergency, and it is now effected on the whole of our territory. I have extended the possibility of carrying out searches on the orders of the administration in the whole of the territory. Over 104 persons were placed under house arrest, and 168 searches have taken place. There will be more. The enemy has gone a step further. We have the ability to react. The Declaration of Human Rights and Citizens states in Article 2 that the security and resistance to oppression are fundamental rights. We must exercise these rights. In conformity with these principles, we will be providing the means of guaranteeing once again the security of our citizens. I've decided that the Parliament would be examining a draft bill on Wednesday, extending the state of emergency for a 3-month period, and will adapt its content to the evolution of technology and threat. The law of the 3rd of April 1955, which governs the state of emergency, is no longer in conformity with the state of technology and the threats that we see today. But it contains 2 exceptional measures: house arrest and the administrative searches. These 2 means provide useful means to prevent the perpetration of new terror acts. And I wish to exercise these fully and extend their scope. The Prime Minister will be proposing to the Parliament that a full administrative regime be adopted for each of these 2 provisions. And ladies and gentlemen, members of the Parliament, and I encourage you to vote this before the end of this week. But we must go beyond the state of emergency. And I've thought about this a great deal. In my conscience, I believe that we need to change our constitution to enable public authorities to act in conformity with the rule of law against an act of war by terrorists. Today, our text has 2 regimes which are not suited to the situation that we have today. The first regime is resorting to Article 7 of the Constitution. It implies that the regular operation of public administration be interrupted. The President of the Republic takes special measures and derogates to the powers given in the Constitution. And there's Article 36 concerning the state of siege, which is also not suited. The state of siege is declared in the case of an immediate danger following armed insurrection and invasion by foreign troops. A number of competencies are transferred from the civilian authority to the military authority. Everyone will agree here that neither of these regimes is adapted to the situation we see today. The functioning of public administration is not interrupted, and it is not conceivable to transfer to military authority special powers. However, we are at war. But this war of a different type, given that we are faced with a new enemy, should enable us to manage the state of crisis. And in 2007, the committee presided over by Édouard Balladur had thought about a possible evolution of our Constitution. It suggested that Article 36 of our basic Constitution be amended to include the state of siege and a state of emergency. And an organic law would be determining the circumstances in which this should be applied. I believe that we should return to this project. We need to have an appropriate tool to be able to take exceptional measures for a specific duration without resorting to the state of emergency and without compromising public liberties. This revision of our Constitution must be accompanied by other measures, such as the loss of nationality. The loss of nationality should not make someone stateless, but we should be able to enable someone who has attacked the fundamental interests of our nation or committed an act of terrorism. The person we must be able to deprive that person of the French nationality on the condition that the person has another nationality. We should also be able to prevent someone with dual citizenship from returning to our territory if the person constitutes a risk of terrorism, unless the person agrees to undergo a very strict surveillance regime, as is the case for our British friends. There are cases with extreme consequences, but this is something that we must do for our interest. And there are possibilities of increasing the surveillance of people who have been the object of intelligence reports. And we will be requiring the opinion of the Council of State to verify the conformity of these proposals with our text. And this opinion will be made public, and we will draw the consequences of this. Let us think seriously about this decision. Our Constitution is our collective compact. It unites all of our citizens. It is the common rule. It carries principles. It is preceded by a preamble which states that France is the state where law rules. The Constitution is our common charter. It is the pact which unites all of the citizens of the country. And since our Constitution is the compact which is essential for us to all live together, it is essential that the text should have answers to fight against those who attack the state. Just as we will be dissolving associations or de facto associations which express hatred or encourage the perpetration of acts of terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen of the Congress, I ask you to think about the decision I have taken, and I ask the Prime Minister to prepare this revision of the Constitution with you so that it can be adopted as early as possible. You will be extending the state of emergency beyond the 12-day period for 3 months, but beyond the 3-month period, we must be in a state of law to fight terrorism. And since the threat will be weighing on us durably, and the fight against Daesh will be mobilizing us for quite some time to come on the external front as well as inside of our country, I have decided to substantially strengthen the means available for the judiciary systems and enforcement services. The investigation services and magistrates should be able to call on the full range of intelligence means and technology whose use is authorized by the new law on intelligence. The criminal proceedings should also take into consideration as closely as possible the specificity of the terrorist threat. Magistrates should have better access to means of investigation, more sophisticated means of investigation to fight, in particular, against the trafficking of arms, because it is with the weapons of criminals that these attacks are perpetrated. The sentences will be considerably increased. And concerning the way in which police officers are authorized to use their weapons, that will have to be examined. And all of these different topics will be part of the major legislative effort that I'm asking all the ministers concerned to examine, so that we can waste no time in the action in which we are engaging. These different schemes will complete all the different measures which have been adopted since 2012. The anti-terrorist law, a law on intelligence, a considerable strengthening of means. And I'm also aware of the fact that we must further increase our means. If we are at war, it cannot be with what we had a few years ago, with the military programming law or other texts which had been imagined to ensure the security of our citizens. 5,000 additional posts will be created for police officers and gendarmes within the next 2 years, so as to increase the total number of new jobs in the security area to 10,000 for the 5-year period, 5-year mandate. It's a considerable effort given the present budgetary context, and that will simply enable us to restore the level of forces to what it was in 2007. That will benefit the fighting against terrorism, border police, and the overall security of the country. And it will be accompanied with equipment to carry out these missions. The Ministry of Justice will be provided with 2,500 additional posts for the administration of prisons and the judiciary services. And I'm not forgetting the customs staff, where 1,000 additional posts will be created. As to our armies, which are called upon more and more for our external operations that we will be continuing, and called upon for the security of our population, I have decided
that we will not reduce our defense forces until 2019, and the reorganization of the army will favor the operational units, our cyber security, and our intelligence services. So without delay, we will be presenting a new plan for managing the human resources of our armies by 2019. We also need to capitalize more on the use of our reserve forces. We have reserve forces which we can call on. They are also a link between the armies and the people. They are resources, reserves, who could form a national guard which could be very effective. All these budgetary decisions will be taken under the finance bill, which is being discussed for 2016, and it will necessarily result, and I assume responsibility for this, it will result by more expenditures. But in the current circumstances, I believe that our security pact requires this investment in order to ensure the stability of our country. The faces of those who died and who were injured last Friday, the faces of the families who are mourning, haunt my mind. And the memories, these memories are reinforcing my resolution and yours, I know. In our determination to fight against terrorism, I want France to remain what she is. The barbarians who want to disfigure France must not be allowed to do so. And they will not allow, we will not allow them to change the face of France. We don't want them to damage France's soul. And we will prevent them from, they will not prevent us from living fully the life the way of life that we have, of freedom. But we must show this in a calm way. I'm thinking of our youth, the youth who feel attacked, hurt by all these victims, and who are wondering if they will be able to continue living under the rule of law. We must continue to work, and we must continue to go out and to live, to enjoy life, and to try and influence the world. That's why the big event which will take place in Paris in December, the COP21, will not only be kept, will not only be maintained, but will be a moment of hope and solidarity, a moment of hope because we will be talking about the future of our planet, and also a moment of solidarity. Over 100 heads of state and government will be here in Paris to negotiate a sustainable, binding agreement which to allow us to live and to allow our children and grandchildren to continue to enjoy the planet they have inherited. But they will also come and tell France, a country of freedom, how much the world feels solidarity, the whole world feels solidarity for France and is prepared to mobilize against terrorism. And in the same way, our democracy will not give in to blackmail. The regional elections will take place as planned next month, and our political life will continue. It is our duty to do so. Mr. Speaker of the Congress, Mr. President of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen who represent the nation, the whole of the nation, you represent the nation in all its diversity and also as in all its unity. You represent a free people who are invincible when they are united. It is our most precious asset, and we must avoid drifting away from these values, and that is also our duty as Republic. It's by renouncing the fight for Republican values that in certain circumstances in the past we have drifted away from our values. Let's make sure we don't do the same thing today. The Republic, we want to give the Republic all the resources that this new context requires, the war, to enable it to eradicate in line with our values, whilst respecting our values, to eradicate terrorism without losing the guarantees of the rule of law. We will eradicate terrorism because the French want to live together without fear, without living in fear. We will eradicate terrorism because we are attached to liberty and to the international reputation of France across the world. We will eradicate terrorism in order to allow free movement of people, mixing of cultures that will remain, and that human civilization will be enriched by this. We will eradicate terrorism so that France will continue to show the way. Terrorism will not destroy the Republic, because it is the Republic which will destroy terrorism. Long live the Republic, long live France.
Mes chers collègues, la séance est suspendue pour quelques instants afin que je puisse raccompagner le président de la République.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.